Behind every legend lies a reason. This is Myth and Motive.
The documented case involves a group of civilians who, during an active investigation, decided to use a Ouija board. This tool, a board game marketed for entertainment, became their method for seeking information about a serious crime. Their actions did not involve supernatural beliefs in ghosts or demons as real entities. Instead, this event is analyzed through psychological lenses, such as the power of suggestion in group settings. In investigations, suggestion can influence memory, recall, and lead to false or distorted testimonies from witnesses. Comparisons can be drawn to other documented cases where unconventional methods were used in desperate searches for answers. The line between seeking closure and potentially obstructing justice becomes blurred in such scenarios. This raises questions about how emotional distress and group dynamics can impact rational decision-making during crises. In small communities, violent crimes often create unique investigative challenges. Limited resources and close social connections can complicate evidence collection and witness cooperation. When traditional law enforcement methods stall, community anxiety typically increases significantly. This pattern mirrors documented cases where small-town investigations face different pressures than urban ones. The absence of arrests in such settings often leads residents to question established procedures. This creates a psychological environment where normal social dynamics become strained over time. Investigative stagnation in close communities follows predictable patterns observed in criminal psychology. The perceived failure of conventional approaches often marks a critical phase in such investigations. The gathering occurred in an atmosphere of frustration and fear, with participants seeking leads about the crime. They reportedly used a Ouija board, a mass-produced board game marketed as a novelty. During this private meeting, this was an attempt to make contact and generate information about the unsolved crime. The use of the board was not an official police tactic or investigative method. Ouija boards operate on the ideomotor effect, where unconscious muscle movements guide the planchette. This psychological phenomenon explains how participants might perceive meaningful messages from random movements. Similar patterns occur in other group settings where stress and suggestion influence collective perception. The gathering reflects how desperation can lead people to unconventional methods when traditional approaches fail. This private initiative operated independently from official law enforcement channels. Such parallel investigations sometimes emerge when individuals believe official processes are insufficient. These individuals were not sworn officers, meaning they lacked legal authority to conduct official interrogations. Their actions created a separate investigative track running parallel to the sanctioned investigation. Information allegedly obtained from these private sessions was later presented to authorities. This transfer of information represents a critical junction where unofficial findings enter the official record. Such scenarios raise questions about evidence, admissibility, and investigative boundaries. The separation between official and unofficial actions can significantly impact how information is evaluated. Detectives faced a procedural dilemma when receiving this tip. They were legally required to document the information, but standard investigative protocols demanded careful evaluation. The core challenge was contamination. Any information from such a source carries the participants' own knowledge, biases, and subconscious influences. This makes it difficult to separate factual leads from psychological projections. Media coverage of the event often prioritized the sensational element, the use of the board, over the deeper community trauma. This focus can overshadow the complex psychological dynamics and real human suffering involved. Such reporting patterns are common in cases involving unusual elements, where the strange detail becomes the story. The result is a narrative that risks minimizing the underlying human experiences of betrayal and loss. The story gained national attention, often presented without its real-world consequences. Between minutes 4 and 6:30, the narrative often focuses on limits and misconceptions surrounding the events. A critical misconception is the belief that a Ouija board provided a solution. There is no verifiable evidence that the board yielded unique, factual information previously unknown to those involved. This highlights a common pattern where symbolic tools are mistakenly credited with generating new evidence. The mechanism at play often involves the reinterpretation of existing knowledge, not the discovery of new facts. Comparatively, similar narratives in other cases show how group dynamics can shape the perception of information sources. The focus remains on the documented absence of corroborating proof for the board's alleged role. The planchette's movement is explained by the ideomotor effect, where unconscious muscle actions guide it. This means the answers come from the users themselves, not from external supernatural forces. In high-stakes situations, this psychological mechanism can dangerously amplify pre-existing suspicions within a group. Shared fears are reinforced as the device appears to validate them, creating a feedback loop of belief. This phenomenon is not unique to Ouija boards. It occurs in other settings where suggestion and expectation are strong. The critical question is whether such generated information has ever directly influenced official investigations. If it has, the consequences could involve harm to innocent individuals based on collective, unconscious fabrication. This highlights the real-world danger when psychology is mistaken for paranormal evidence. The narrative often omits significant risks, such as the potential for false accusations. These accusations can divert police resources to chase leads born of collective anxiety. This creates legal jeopardy for those potentially spreading unsubstantiated claims. These are the unanswerable and most important questions in such situations. The real lesson here is about group psychology under stress, not the supernatural. This phenomenon occurs when collective anxiety overrides individual critical thinking. Similar patterns appear in various high-stress situations where facts become secondary. Understanding these psychological mechanisms helps prevent harmful speculation. When a community feels powerless, the desire for closure can manifest in rituals that create a sense of control and action. The Ouija board served as a focal point for that shared desperation. This phenomenon is not unique. Throughout history, communities facing uncertainty have turned to similar symbolic tools. These rituals provide psychological relief by offering structured participation during chaotic times. From an investigative standpoint, this case is a stark lesson in source evaluation. Investigators must distinguish between genuine evidence and artifacts created by collective belief. The board's responses often reflect the participants' subconscious thoughts rather than external forces. This mechanism, known as the ideomotor effect, explains how subtle muscle movements can guide the planchette. Such cases underscore the importance of psychological analysis in understanding group behavior during investigations. For law enforcement, every tip must be rigorously vetted for its origin and factual basis before it can be considered credible. This process involves verifying the source's reliability and cross-checking information against existing evidence. For the public, this highlights the profound ethical responsibility that comes with inserting oneself into an active investigation. Well-intentioned actions by civilians can inadvertently compromise physical evidence at a scene. They can also taint witness pools by spreading unverified information that influences testimony. This contamination of the investigative process can ultimately delay real justice for victims. The tension lies between the public's desire to help and the need for a sterile, methodical investigation. This dynamic is a common challenge in high-profile cases where public interest runs deep. The town's experience with the Ouija board reveals a fundamental human response to uncertainty. When faced with the unknown, communities often seek tangible methods to find answers. The Ouija board operates through the ideomotor effect, where subconscious movements guide the planchette. This phenomenon demonstrates how our minds can create convincing external signals from internal thoughts. Similar patterns occur in other belief systems, where tools become conduits for personal revelation. The search for truth often involves projecting our deepest questions onto external objects. What appears as supernatural communication is frequently internal psychology made manifest. This case illustrates how communities collectively navigate uncertainty through shared rituals.
If the legend hooked you, subscribe and open the next case.